RC with Adam is brought to you in part by these super awesome people. Okay, now that we have everything wired up and connected, everything should be working really good. And it's not exactly the most streamlined and cleanest build, but it is relatively sort of low profile, not too messy. So we're going to get our V-Fly short saver here, so just in case there's a short, we won't smoke anything on the board here, so we will connect our battery. And we have a green light, and let's connect the battery to here so then we can get it bound up to our quadcopter. Well, first let's just turn this on and see what happens. Alright, awesome. So it seems to be working. Now let's get our quadcopter set up in Betaflight, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bind the receiver because we want to do that so that way we can kind of, for the whole process, we need to do that. So I'm going to bind my receiver to this transmitter this time. This is the i6X because I want to get back to using this one. I may as well just bring you along for the whole setup for that. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to the system setup. I'm going to go to, let's go to RX setup. I want to make sure that the output mode is set to iBus, and it is, so that's great. We're going to get out of there. We're going to go to, let's go over to the function setup. You go to aux channel, so aux channel 5 is going to be switch A, channel 6 is going to be switch B, channel 7 is going to be switch C because A, B, C, and then 8 is going to be D. And then variable A for channel 9 and variable B, or variometer or whatever, for that one. Press and hold cancel to save it. And let's see here, throttle curve, mixes, retail, assign switches. No, we don't need to do that. Throttle hold, we don't need that. Really don't need any of that stuff. So we should be good to go. Now I need to go through the bind process and bind this to this transmitter. So I have everything set up in the transmitter, which is great. And then I didn't have to do that before I bound, but you know, it's kind of good that way. And then this flight controller does actually power the receiver from the USB port. So if I connect the USB plug right here, you can see the receiver is actually powered as well as the board, of course. So what I need to do now is actually hold down the bind button right here, right there, and it's hard to tell if it's pressed down because of the thick heat shrink tubing, but I'm going to press where the bind button is, I believe, and then connect this guy if I can with one hand. There we go. So we're blinking. It's a fast flashing red blink. Now on my transmitter, I'm going to hold down the bind button and turn it on, and I have to put the switches up while still holding the bind button. And it says binding okay. Yay! Okay, so now we can set up our quadcopter in Betaflight, and I have a micro USB to regular USB. They can transmit data, and I have this connected to my laptop. And so we will connect the USB plug into our quadcopter flight controller, like that. There we go. Beautiful, and we'll just set that down because it's pretty much just going to hang out right there. So now in Betaflight, the first thing that we want to do is we want to update the firmware. So we can click the Update the Firmware tab in the right-hand corner. So in the firmware flasher section, you can see this already came up because I did flash the firmware already to sort of test this, but I want to take you through this process anyway. So this one, our target is Maytech F411. And that is our target, and the newest version for now is 4.2.2. And by the way, I do have the 10.7.0 Betaflight configurator, which you do need if you're going to use the latest version of the Betaflight firmware. So, blah, 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 all this stuff. And we're going to hit load firmware from online. And now we will say flash firmware. No response. Interesting. Oh, duh, because it's not in bootloader mode. I was having problems with this earlier, but actually not exactly because of this. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to press the bootloader button on here on the board. I know you can't see it from there, but we need to press the bootloader button down, press and hold. Now we'll plug in our quadcopter. Silly me. Okay, and we still have power to our receiver, but the board does not light up, so it is in bootloader mode. Okay, now that the board is in bootloader mode, we can say flash firmware, and it's erasing the previous whatever was on there before, and now it will load the newer firmware. Now another note is that one thing is if you're getting an error when you're flashing the board, when you're trying to flash the board, first of all, just like I did there, you got to make sure it's in bootloader mode. And secondly, make sure that your USB cable can actually transmit data, because that is a pretty common thing, that you might have a USB cable that is used for charging something, but it doesn't actually have that extra wire for data. And basically the best way to tell is, like, if it's a cable that you would normally use to connect something to the computer, then it's gonna work for this situation. But otherwise you can't really tell, like, physically looking at the cable. Also, if one doesn't work and you know it should work, just use a different cord, because I think the connectors can wear out and stuff, and I think that's what was happening on the other one. And anyway, you get the idea. So all right, programming successful, yay! Reconnect the flight controller. Okay, I'm not getting any lights. I thought I was going to get lights, but for some reason I'm not. I'm not going to pretend to have the answer to that, but let's connect it, and it'll say, do you want to apply custom defaults? And we say, yes, apply those custom defaults, because it's kind of like, it's really important. Oh, okay, now we're getting some lights. There we go. So that must have been it. It must have just been in like very, very fresh mode, whatever that is. Okay, now let's connect to here, and it says, warning, your accelerometer is not calibrated. Okay, so that's not that big of a deal, but we do want to calibrate our accelerometer, so setting our quadcopter down on a flat surface, and I do have the these little pads. I put the little pads on here that came with the frame. It came with the frame, and we're going to click calibrate accelerometer, and it's just gonna, that's what the quadcopter knows now as level. So that's what it uses as a reference for level, like if we want to do auto level mode or something like that. Great, so that is very important. Now let's just get one thing out of the way. The most important thing is, because of how I wired this up right here, as I showed in the when I was building this, the LED pad is what I connected my smart audio to. So we're going to use a thing called Softserial to turn that LED pad into a TX pad, like for a UART. So the UARTs relate to the TX and RX pads on the board, and so that's what we're going to do. So we're just going to jump straight down there to get that thing working and kind of just get that out of the way. So if you had stuff set up on your flight controller, you should like save a copy of it. But for this, we're just going to go straight into here and say resource. And then you see all these resources, and those are basically like the pads and stuff on the board. And so what we want is LED strip 1 right there. So resource LED strip 1 is A08. So what we want to do, and if you wanted two pads, like for a normal UART, like a TX and RX, you would have to have two pads that you could use. But anyway, this isn't really a tutorial for Softserial. So all right, so I'm going to it's easier to just copy and paste, I think. So LED strip 1, resource LED strip 1, so copy, and then I'm going to paste it in the command line here, and I'm going to type in none, and then it says resource is freed, which is what we want. And then if we let's see, so then I'm just going to copy this this resource right there, resource for serial TX, and that is actually, I want the TX, but instead I'm going to delete the numbers at the end, and instead of TX1 I actually want TX11, because that is Softserial 1. It kind of works like aux channels almost. It's almost like aux channels for your flight controller, but that's too confusing. Anyway, serial TX1, so I know that is Softserial 1, and then I'm going to put in the same number for what the LED strip was. So A08 is what that is, right? LED strip 1, A08. So I'm going to type in A08 and then enter, and then it says resource is set to A08, and I'm going to press or type save and press enter. It's going to kick me out because that's what it always does. That's normal, and then we're going to connect back up. And now if we go to the ports tab, you'll see we have Softserial right there. So now I'm going to set up my ports. So as you can see from this diagram, TX1 and RX1 are down here, and then TX and RX2 are on this side, and this is the side that we put my receiver on. So UART2 is what we want to use for serial RX. So we want to uncheck UART1, we want to check UART2 for serial RX, and then for UART1 we have the camera connected there. So we want camera run cam protocol is what we want, and then on Softserial 1 we want to select under the peripherals, we want to select TBS, VTX, TBS Smart Audio right there. Boom, selected, just like that. And then and let's go ahead and click save and reboot. So we have that set up, and we'll just go down the line like I would normally do, and just to make sure we haven't missed anything. Let's see, I'm not sure which way these motors are spinning actually, so we will come back to this, the motor direction. I want to make sure my protocol here, DShot 600, that should be fine. And here's a really important one for the receiver. We do want serial-based receiver, but instead of S-bus, we want I-bus. That's very, very, very important. And and Softserial here is already checked, but we would have had to make sure that this is enabled in order to do the Softserial. So in case Softserial is not working, you got to make sure that it is enabled in the configuration tab. So all this other stuff, I was reading LED strip. All this other stuff looks pretty good. Oh, I don't necessarily want to permanently enable. I don't know. I'm gonna set this up just like how I set up all my other quads for now, but I'm not sure if that really matters whether it's permanently enabled or not. DShot beacon configuration, yeah, let's do RX lost and RX set. When aux channel is set for beep, yes, I'd like to have that backup for the beeper, and then we could change all these beeps if we want to. Sometimes the beeps do get like really annoying. Let's connect back up in here, and let's go to, we did configuration. Power and battery, I don't care about that. Oh, let's enable expert mode to make sure we don't miss anything. Failsafe is just set to drop, that's fine. PID tuning, I'm not going to mess with the PIDs or anything like that, but I do want to mess with the rate profile. So I'm going to use the actual rates. I've been kind of playing around with these. It says, warning, you are changing the rate types. I'm like, I know, it's okay. Okay, cool. So we have the rates set up so that they should be a little bit better. Now, the receiver. Now, this is the part where, let's see if we can actually just turn on our transmitter. Oh, yay! It works. That's actually very nice. So I don't even have to have a battery connected to the quadcopter in order to check and make sure that my receiver is working. So it is. Channel map is AETR1234, and you might need to change that depending on what you're using. The RSSI is, I believe it's aux 10. Pretty darn sure, and that'll be for our OSD RSSI. Okay, one thing I forgot, we got to go back to the configuration tab. This is very important. Actually, let's go to the setup tab, and let's see what my quadcopter is doing. Okay, so notice that the quad, as I move it, as I pitch the quad forward, it is, okay, let's actually do this here. Let's do reset Z axis, so like that. There we go. So as I pitch the quad forward, it's actually going like sideways, like to the front left arm is sort of where it's going. And that's because the arrow is actually pointing towards the front left arm because of how the board is designed. So what we need to do is we need to go to configuration. For board and sensor alignment, for yaw, we need to say, actually I'm not sure if it's going to be positive or negative 45 degrees, but let's do 45 degrees. and then let's click save and reboot. There we go. And let's connect, and let's see how it looks. So let's reset the Z-axis. That looks good. I think that looks good. Yeah. So we have pitch is correct, and forwards and backwards. Roll is correct, and yaw is correct also. Modes. Let's go to Modes tab. So we want to do arming, and let's see here. So I can. We want to set. Oh, is that aux 1? Oh, it's already set up for aux 1. So our arm switch is, and you can see here again. I always like to have it be armed when the switch is up. I think that just makes sense. So I am going to drag the slider all the way over to the position where the little hash mark will be when it is in the up position, like that. There we go. And so the arming is done. That's great. Let's do oh, we don't want to hide unused modes. Stop that. Okay, cool. So then for angle, so let's add range for angle. Angle is going to be aux 1, aux 2, aux 3. So on my 3 position switch here, and that will be in the bottom position. So the bottom position will be angle mode. Just kind of drag that guy right there. And then let's see here. Beeper. We want to add something for the beeper. I like to use my, let's do aux, or let's see, aux 1, aux 2, aux 3, aux 4, aux 5, aux 6. It would be aux 5. So I like to use my one of my variable knobs that I don't use for like almost anything, and we'll just have it be all in one, all the way to one side, and that will turn on the beeper. I like that. Air mode. Air mode is going to be also on channel 3 on the 3 position switch, but it's going to be at the top of that switch. So when the switch is in the full upward position, that is where that will turn on air mode. Oh, let's see. So many other interesting things. So many other interesting things. Oh, flip over after crash. We got to have that. Although this seems like this thing would be kind of hard pressed to flip over after crash. That's going to be aux 2 right next to my arming switch, and it's going to be again when the switch is in the up position, which in this case is going to be at about 1,000 microseconds. And let's see, pre-arm, VTX pit mode. I don't really care about that. Paralyze, acro trainer. I don't really care about acro trainer. I don't really care about any of those things. So we're going to click save. It has saved this, and one way you can tell whether or not it's saved is by doing the beeper. Oh, huh, it pulled too many amps. The beeper pulled too many amps. All right, let's try the beeper. Maybe I didn't wire up the beeper correctly. It should be beeping. But the motors are beeping. Oh, and the arming is disabled. Okay, cool. So we have the modes set up. Let's go to, let's see, I don't need adjustments. I don't need servos. We can go to the motors, and we can test the motors and test the arming, make sure that they arm. Ooh, they sound so nice and tiny, high-pitched. All right, so these motors are spinning outward. Nice. And these ones are spinning outward. Dang, it's almost like I planned that. Okay, sweet. All right, so this is important. So for one, the motors are working. I pulled too many amps. All right, I'm gonna have to take this. I gotta take the short saver off. There we go. Okay, so now let's do a full power motor run up. Oh, that didn't sound good. Oh, it's on auto level mode. Let's do this one. Okay, still behaving kind of strangely, but it usually will on the bench. But mainly the thing is that the motors are working. That one sounds funny. I think it's because of those, it's got those screws that are loose for the ducts. Okay, cool. So the motors are working. That's great. But one important thing is we need to go back to the configuration tab and say, let the Betaflight know that the motors are reversed. The motor direction is reversed from the normal way, so they are spinning sort of outward, which is usually how I like to have the motors set up. But in this case, it wouldn't really matter. But it really matters to let Betaflight know which way the motors are going. And I won't have to swap the motors around because I made sure to do them sort of diagonally opposite from each other. Or no, diagonally the same when I wired them up, when I soldered them. Okay, so for the OSD, let's go ahead and what do I like to have on here? I like to have... Okay, I think that'll work for the OSD for now. I'll play around with it later. Now, here's another part that is really annoying now with the new Betaflight, and that is the video transmitter. So the video transmitter tables thing, it's annoying, but there are some helpful videos. I might put them in the link in the description. But basically, you have to go, and I will definitely put this link in the description. You have to go to GitHub in order so go to this website. I'll put a link down in the description, and they have the VTX tables for Betaflight. And basically, most of the time is if you're using TBS Smart Audio, most of it is going to be 2.0 because 1.0 is older and 2.1 is like only some things. So basically, you want to copy this link right here. So you'd like right click and then you'd say copy link address, or you just download it, or you say save link as. That's what I did. I did save link as, and then what you do, what did I just do? There we go. Now back in Betaflight, what you do is, now that we have that file saved, we'll say load from file, and then in my downloads I can get VTX table Smart Audio, this guy right here, open that up, and then shabamo, it loads it right in here, which is very, very nice, instead of having to like manually enter these or whatever. So that's lame. I mean, it's easier this way, but it's still kind of lame. And you need to make sure that you actually set this up for your video transmitter. So for this video transmitter, we do not have 3 number of power levels. We have 2 power levels, and that is 25 and 200. And so that is correct now. And then for the band, let's see, whatever band it is on, because I had already set this up prior to test it out. So whatever it's on right now works just fine. But for example, if I wanted to set this so that I could see with my goggles, right now I have it on band Bosscam B, channel 2. I believe it's channel 2. And the power, I'll set it to 25. Anyway, so that's basically how you set up the VTX tables. And let's click save on the VTX tables. Very cool. So then this way we'll be able to actually, to even use our video transmitter, and we'll be able to use the stick commands for the video transmitter. All right, sensors, tethered logging, black box. I don't really care about any of those. So that is it. That's pretty much it. Let's go back to the configuration or the ports tab one more time, just to make sure that we have this correct. So Softserial peripheral is VTX CBS Smart Audio. UART2 is for, it's for our serial RX, and then UART1 on the peripherals is camera run cam. And so let's just, everything's been saved, so let's just disconnect. I think we'll kick it off with these pretty much like the most normal propellers. These are HQ props, CineWhoop 75mm propellers here. Lovely. feel like that's actually quite a bit of battery. I feel like that's a decent amount of battery lead retention right there. So having it kind of come up through the frame, lip of the duct kind of keeps it up, so that's not too bad. If it does get knocked down, it's not really a problem in terms of chopping up the antenna because the propeller is far away from it, but it does kind of mess with the airflow and stuff. I'll just keep it up like that. Here. And then back down. Okay, all up weight with a 1300 milliamp hour 4-cell. It weighs 399 grams. And then if we put on like a GoPro mount, 411. And then I don't have the GoPro with me, but then the weight of the GoPro. So it's probably, this thing is going to be about I think about 500 grams probably. So, a hefty little dude.
So now we're going to fly this thing for the very first time.
Let's put it in angle mode first.
Wow, it sounds really crazy. It's a very high pitch. Oh wow. Very high pitch. Like there's like at certain throttle ranges, it's like a very high pitch, very uncomfortable sound. I don't really like that. Maybe some different props would have a different effect. Let's go into acro mode here. Okay, definitely more gentle in acro mode. Like if I try to do auto level, it's like quite twitchy for some reason. This thing is so loud. Which is too bad because I kind of thought, I was hoping it would actually be quieter. So here it is in acro mode. And the controls are I would say nice and gentle, quite a bit. Let's try doing a roll. Also the throttle, we have a pretty good amount of power here. I'm hovering at like, I'd say just about half throttle. And it has a nice little punch. I mean, it's not insane, but for what it is, pretty good. Let's do a roll. Okay, yeah, that's a respectable roll rate right there. Yeah, pretty good handling so far. We could try a flip. Wow. Yeah, a little slower on the flip, which is how I set it up. Let's do another roll. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, I think this might work well. Feels pretty darn stable though. I think we'll really be able to do some really good precision stuff with this. It is just really loud, like a really high pitch sound. So not a fan of that. Also the beeper is still not working for some reason. I'll have to take this apart and figure out what's going on. Maybe that beeper is just broken or something. I don't know, we'll figure something out. But successful first flight, which is always very important. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think we can take the GoPro off of my head and stick it on this thing and do just some gentle flights. I mean, that's what this thing is made for, gentle flights. Let's feel the motors. The motors are a little warm. Yeah, they're a little warm. Okay. The 4S battery seems to be pretty good with this. Yeah, I was thinking about going down to a 3S, but I feel like a 3S probably would not give us enough thrust. Like, it might work, because I was thinking a larger 3S battery to reduce the weight but then increase the runtime, but I don't know if that would really be ideal, especially for dynamic flying. Also, I'm going to have to go in and add some expo to my throttle as well, which actually I can do that through stick commands as well. So let's get this thing set up for the next flight.